Bom dia, good morning e boa tarde para quem está presente desde Portugal. Welcome to Nypalc's Town Hall. We are excited to welcome every single one of you. I'm Isabel Coelho Marques, the immediate past president and chair of the Government Affairs and Policy Committee at Nypalc. I have the honor to be moderating today's town hall. Many thanks to our guest speakers and all that join us today. Please be advised that the town hall is being recorded. All participants are muted. Only the speakers may unmute themselves. We ask everyone to comply with this to avoid noise interference. The session will consist of interventions by our invited guests, and these will follow with a Q&A. All questions were submitted to Nypalc via email by members of our community. I am now honored to introduce Nypalc's president and my dear friend, Rosa Leal.
Thank you, Isabel, and good morning to all. On behalf of the Nypalc Board of Directors and our member organization, welcome. My message is short. During these hard times, Nypalc first says thanks to all of our frontline heroes and essential workers who continue to bravely look after all of us. We will forever be thankful. We thank all of those present here today in representation of Nypalc's 70 member organizations spread through New York State. And we especially thank our invited guest speakers for their presence today. We are looking to you for leadership in favor of our New York Portuguese American community and our communities at large. Thank you all. And now I present to you Tony Castro, our Vice President.
Well, thank you, Rosa, and I want to thank all of our guests. We really appreciate having you all here at this town hall. For those of you who are not familiar with Nypalc, I'd like to explain a little bit about the association, what we're about, a little bit of the history. So it is an association of 70 organizations in New York State. We're independent, nonprofit, with no political affiliations. We are the voice of the Portuguese Americans here in New York State by advocating for and defending their interests. We encourage meetings such as this so that elected officials both here and abroad understand who we are, our needs and concerns. We're very active and reach thousands through social media. We hold a number of major events annually. For instance, we hold our gala in Suffolk County, which with approximately 400 people, both ambassadors, both the Portuguese and the American ambassador have attended. We have a parade in Nassau County, which is attended by thousands. Senator Kaplan was actually one of our guests last year. We also have the Heritage Day or Portugal Day here in Westchester County. And that's been held for almost 50 years, a long tradition. And we have a youth conference which introduces our youth to professionals of various fields. We have more regular events such as monthly meetings in various communities. We also hold weekly happy hours on Fridays. It's been very creative in this COVID-19 time that we started doing that virtually. And we're attracting increasing numbers from throughout. We're civic-minded. We help those in need. We help the victims of the fires in Portugal. We just set up a go-to fund for the victims of the coronavirus. And we've provided scholarships for our youth. We're increasingly active and we continue to grow by leaps and bounds. And I think that's a short summary of who we are and what we're about. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Lisa Valenti. She's on the board of directors and a member of the Government Affairs and Policy Committee. And she's also on the Nypalc Legal Committee, and she just joined us recently. So I'm happy to pass it on to her.
Thank you, Tony, for those words. I'm in total agreement with everything you just said about our community. And as a Nypalc board member and an attorney, an active member in our Portuguese community, I want to thank all of our guests today for taking the time to speak at this town hall meeting about the challenges our community members are facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our Portuguese community is a tight-knit and well-organized community with a strong voice and presence here in New York. We are a tough and determined group, for sure. However, it gives us much pain to see so many of our community members hurting because of the pandemic, especially a great number of our small business owners who have been crippled by the effects of the virus. It is our hope that our local, state, and federal governments will provide our community members with the much needed assistance that they require to weather the COVID-19 storm. We are grateful for our elected officials who we know are our voice and who are working hard to help solve our community's problems. We thank all of our guests today for their tireless efforts in helping our community members to obtain the assistance that they need during this unprecedented time. And on behalf of the entire Portuguese American community, thank you again to our guests today and for taking the time to speak with us. And we wish you all continued safety and good health. Back to you, Isabel.
Our community has been deeply impacted by COVID-19. Many members of our community have been laid off. Our small businesses are struggling to keep afloat. Our community centers are closed and have their events canceled. This reflects a huge loss of revenue, and many of these have very little or no cash reserves to ensure its continuity. We need Congress to continue to fight to include nonprofits in the stimulus so our community centers that serve the greater community can survive COVID-19. Before moving forward, I am honored to acknowledge the presence of today's town hall, 3 New York Portuguese elected officials, Councilwoman Janice Duarte of the city of Mount Vernon, Councilman Tony Gonçalves of the town of Lewisboro, and Deputy Mayor Paul Pereira of the village of Mineola. I'm also honored to acknowledge the presence of the Portuguese Parliament members, Dr. José Cesário and Dr. Paulo Porto Fernandes. Now, for the person everyone is waiting for, it is my distinct honor to introduce and welcome a great friend of the New York Portuguese American community, United States Representative Eliot Engel. Congressman Engel is the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He also serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee, including the Subcommittee on Health. He is the founder and co-chair of the House Energy and National Security Caucus. Congress Engel represents the Portuguese strongholds of Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and Yonkers. Welcome, Congress Engel. The screen is yours.
Thank you. I hope you can see me. Yes?
Yes, I can see you, Eliot.
Okay.
Tony Castro.
Oh, hi. Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. This is our lives have been turned upside down. So who would have thought that we would have a meeting like this on a Sunday morning without the good Portuguese food we're used to? I mean, I feel like I've been cheated because I've never gone to a Portuguese party without. So you owe me. Hopefully, when this pandemic is taken care of, and I hope it's in the not too distant future, we'll be able to celebrate again with the wonderful food and even the better company that we're always used to. This is a very obviously difficult time. I don't have to tell anybody. Our lives have been turned upside down, and really the uncertainty, I think, is what makes it even more difficult. We have a future, but we don't know when things are going to happen and where, how, and all the questions. We hope there will be a vaccine. We hope it'll come within the next few months, but nobody can really say it, and we have to obviously be concerned with people who are already infected, and then we have to be concerned with preventing people from getting affected. So it's sort of a two-pronged fight, and we are making progress, and people like myself and others are ensuring that the government makes it its very first priority, and we are. But these things don't come quickly. They come slowly. We don't want to hear any more quack remedies such as take different medications, or even things that aren't medications, cleaning powders or whatever it is. We want to make sure it's safe, and we want to make sure that that nobody gets sick or dies because they're taking some drug that's not supposed to be ingested by people. The New York delegation, we have been working very closely together. In fact, later on today, we have another conference call to discuss what our plan of action is. As you know, we've passed two large bills. Some of them have been working well, others have not. And we want to make sure that whatever we pass, of course, works well for New York. I'm the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and therefore I'm very concerned with what goes on around the world. I've always treasured the relationship between Portugal and the United States. Portugal is one of our strong NATO allies, one of our strong allies in the world. And the US and Portugal have gotten along for all these years. Since the end of World War II, Portugal has been one of our most dearest and trusted allies, and I don't see that changing at all. And some of the people were wondering if this continues much longer and people need to go back and forth between Portugal and the United States, will it be possible? The question is, of course, we don't know individual cases will be possible, but we do know that I will try, my office will try everything possible to reunite families, or whatever case comes up. I'll always be there by your side, willing to help and able to help. We are obviously in uncharted waters, and so it's very difficult to say that this is going to happen and that's going to happen. So we just go along the best way we can. And unfortunately, it becomes a political fight, which it shouldn't, because every life is dear, and it shouldn't be mired down in politics. But as everybody knows, things usually get mired down in politics, and that's what's happening. Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader, has not been particularly kind to New York. Frankly, I don't think our president has been particularly kind to New York, and there's lots of pressure that we in the New York delegation keep putting on him and others to make sure that our needs are met. Mitch McConnell made a statement a few weeks ago saying that let the states, meaning New York and some of the other states, go bankrupt. Who cares, or something like that. The fact of the matter is, he said let the blue states go bankrupt. It was disappointing to hear him couch it in terms of blue states or even red states or anything like that. We're all Americans, and we all need to work together, and we all need to take the politics out of it when we're dealing with life and death, which is what this pandemic is about. And so we demand that New York get its fair shake. We're asking all our friends to make sure they fill out the census so that we are counted, because every additional person we have in the count means more federal dollars to us. And we are planning strategies to make sure that the bills that we've already passed and signed into law, that's not parts that are not working, get remediated and get fixed. For instance, we all know the story about what happened with the small business grants, where Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or some of the other companies, Shake Shack, took all the monies. And then when you really had mom and pop stores, people that really needed the help, the money wasn't there. That's intolerable and unacceptable, and that has to change. And I have been very strongly fighting for that, and I believe we've made good progress, and we would expect on this next round to see New York get much more help. Again, because it's uncharted waters and we've never had anything like this before, there's always going to be problems, but we are on top of them, and we're going to make sure that New York gets its fair share. We are, in the aggregate, a donor state, which means when you collect taxes from New York, when you see the different formulas, New York gives more money to the federal government than we get back. So we are a donor state. So when there are certain formulas that come out in our favor, I don't want to hear somebody from Kentucky or anyplace else, moan and groan about how New York or how blue states are getting more than they should. If you look at the whole package and you look at everything, we're getting what we deserve. And in fact, I would argue we're entitled to more. And that's why I am fighting for more. The delegation is fighting for more. Chuck Schumer, who of course is our senator, is the Senate minority leader. And so he has clout in fighting for more. And we are working with the governor and all the elected officials in New York to make sure that we get what we need. Now, what will the next bill look like? The bill that was passed, of course, was for small business, was for banks and testing. Those were actually the three things. And testing is really the key, I think. If we ever get it down pat, it's really the key to get under the virus and get rid of it. We have to make sure that we don't even stop for 1 minute in that regard, because how many people are we hearing that are dying? And of course in Europe as well, and that of course includes Portugal, people are dying, and it's just not acceptable that we cannot get under it and work together with all our allies and friends, again, certainly including Portugal, to make sure that we help save lives. And that's really the bottom line for me, and I know for everybody here. We've all seen the heart-wrenching stories about people who have died, and if we had been more prepared for it, I think that we could have saved a number of lives. But we have to move on from here, and we have to make sure that the next bills that we pass really help small business, help the mom and pop businesses, stores. We have to make sure that the money is getting to people that need it. We've got to make sure that people who are entitled to unemployment insurance get it. We want to make sure that people shouldn't have to wait weeks and weeks and months, and God only knows how much longer, till they get their money, because by that time their business is out of cannot keep a business going without money. So we are putting our heads together. We are not allowing anybody to step on us, and we are demanding that New York gets its fair share and then some, even more than its fair share, because as I mentioned before, we're a donor state, so we have nothing to be ashamed of. And I want to assure you that as your congressman, I'm going to keep fighting for our rights. I'm going to keep making sure that New York is in the thick of the fight. I'm going to make sure that the needs that we have are taken care of. One of the things that we will be looking at in the new bill is infrastructure. If you take a look and you look back at President Roosevelt back in the 1930s with the Great Depression, we started to pull ourselves out of the Depression when the government created jobs and hired people to build things, build roads and bridges and tunnels and things like that. The FDR highway used to be called the East River Drive, and then it was renamed after Franklin Roosevelt, who was responsible for creating these government jobs. And that's what I personally think is going to happen and should happen. We create jobs, we put people back to work, we make sure that the infrastructure needs, I mean, we've all driven on these highways, on these roads, seems like they're always being repaired, they're never finished. We, I think, have an opportunity here to create good paying jobs and take care of our infrastructure. So these are the kinds of things that I'm going to be looking at, and these are the kinds of things that I'm going to be fighting for. And rest assured that we're not going to stop until we get what we need and then some. So I want to pledge that to you, and I'm happy to take any further questions you might have. In my role as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I'm working with all countries to make sure that the alliances that the United States has with some of our friendly allies like Portugal are strengthened and are strong. I know that the president and some others have talked down NATO and talked down the European Union. I disagree. I think that these alliances are very important. They reestablish the fact that America is the leader of the free world, and they reestablish the fact that countries like Portugal work with us, share the same values and goals, loyal, and we need to make sure that our allies are doing well, just the way our country is doing well. Portugal and the United States have had 75 years of friendship since World War II, and the Portuguese-American relationship has been a pillar of NATO, and I regard NATO as the most important alliance ever to be on the face of the earth. I don't agree with people who say that these alliances cost the United States too much money. The fact of the fact is that if you want to be a leader, you have to lead. And if we want to have nations work with us or agree to do things that we see are important, then you have to work with people. And that means foreign aid, and that means assistance. And that means that countries like Portugal and other countries know that if any country comes into danger, part of the bedrock of NATO is that the other countries will come to that country's aid. And ironically, that was only done once, and that was after September 11th, 2001. And we all know what happened on that miserable day. So I feel good about the alliance. I feel good about US-Portugal relationships. And of course, what we have in America that is really unique and is such a plus for us is the great diaspora of people from all over the world. Portuguese Americans have contributed so much to our society. I am always pleased and privileged when I come to say hello to my Portuguese American friends. I believe, this is what I believe in terms of immigration, that we get in the United States, the best and the brightest come to this country and live the American dream. And that's very, very important. And I want you to know that as long as I am chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I expect to be chairman for a long time to come, I will continue to use every tool in my toolbox to make sure that the relationship between our two countries is strengthened, is strong. And of course, the wonderful diaspora here, the wonderful Portuguese American community is playing and will continue to play a major role and a great role in bringing our two countries together, because we share so much. We share democracy. We share the rule of law. We look at the alliances all across the world, and we have similar views. We believe in democracy, not in dictatorships. It's almost identical in terms of the US and Portugal. So I am pleased to represent the wonderful Portuguese American community in Yonkers, in Mount Vernon, in New Rochelle. It's been my honor and my pleasure. And the only thing I missed this morning is there's no coffee and bagels, but you'll have to make it up to me another time. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Congress Engel, thank you so much. I have a few questions that were sent to us via email to address to you. The first question comes from Lisa Valente from Mineola, and her question says, considering New York is the epicenter of positive COVID-19 cases, and also the state most economically affected by the coronavirus, how can we ensure that New York receives its appropriate need-based share of federal aid related to COVID-19, especially aid directed towards small businesses, many of which still have not received aid?
Well, as I mentioned before, the New York delegation is meeting, and we want to make sure that what we're entitled to, we get. We're not asking for anything more. We're not asking for our getting money at the expense of somebody else. We're asking for our getting help that we're entitled to. And that, again, small businesses, mom and pop stores, people who need the help right now, if they get the help right now, they can continue to flourish. If they don't get the help, they will close, and then we'll have miserable people out of work, people unhappy, and people's lives turned upside down. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not something I'm going to countenance. So we're going to look and see what worked in these first two bills, what didn't work or what isn't working, and we're going to adjust it accordingly. One of the fights that we're going to have is a fight for state and local monies. The government in New York and the governor has put forward all kinds of money to keep things going, and there wasn't enough in the first bill, and so we're demanding our fair share in this bill that's coming up. So it's just a matter of the delegation being there, getting together. You know, the squeaky. My mother used to say, "The squeaky wheel gets the grease," and that's the truth. So we're going to squeak a lot, and we're going to make sure we get what's needed. Meanwhile, if there are any personal, individual problems that anyone would like to call to my attention, please feel free to do so. And we're happy to try to help in any way we can.
Thank you, Congressman. Oh, also, could you please tell us about what are your priorities for the next stimulus package?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think infrastructure is very important because it's a win-win. It creates jobs, but at the same time, it builds our infrastructure. It fixes our highways, fixes our crumbling bridges, fixes all those kinds of things. So it's almost like a 2-for-1. And if you study the Great Depression of the 1930s, it wasn't until these government jobs were created that America started to pull itself out of the Depression. I remember my father talking to me about it, about how difficult it was, and how the fact that nobody had any money and nobody knew where their next paycheck was coming from. But once the government created the jobs, once the government got involved with it, it was something that worked. I'm not usually in favor of the government doing these things. I'm much happier when small business does it, so it's enhanced and creates jobs. But I think in this instance, we need to have both. We need to create jobs in the private sector, and I think the public sector with infrastructure, we need to create jobs and build our crumbling roads and bridges and things like that. So this is not something that's going to end overnight. Some of us were talking the other day and said, gee, have our lives really been changed forever? And the answer to that, unfortunately, may be yes. We just don't know the answer to that. But I do know that government is supposed to be there to help people in their time of need. And that's what I, as your representative, intend to do.
Also, have you had any success as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee procuring any medical supplies from overseas?
Yes, we have. In fact, strangely enough, we've gotten a bunch of things as a result of calls that I've made and people I've spoken to from China, testing, masks, things like that. It's kind of ironic because we know that this virus started in China. It's still up in the air as to how it started, but we know it started there. But they were prepared for it and had excess stock, and so they were trying to get it into this country, and we weren't successful. And then they came to me, and I'm happy to say that I was able to pull the strings and do it as the chairman. So I will continue to do things like that. We have a need. We want to make sure that no one dies or or gets sick and stays sick because we don't have the things to make them better. That's not acceptable. If we know how to make them better and we don't have the supplies, and therefore we can't help the people, that makes it even worse because we have the ability to save somebody and we're not doing it. That to me is a real tragedy. So we're going to keep on fighting. We're going to do infrastructure, I believe. We're going to also continue to help small business because that's the core of what makes our economy grow. We're going to make sure that what worked in this first go around is replicated, and what didn't work is discarded and do something more. The help that's needed really needs to be there because the average person just doesn't know quite what to do, and it's incumbent upon those of us that are in government to help people, that we make sure that everybody who needs help gets help, that the mom and pop businesses get the help, not the big chains who have the fancy lawyers and can get away with it. So we're going to do it. It's not going to end soon. It's going to go, keep on going. And as we find out that something's not working, then we need to shift gears and change it. And I think we will do that. But we also need to test. We need to test, do a lot of testing, so we know exactly where we stand and the best way to get rid of it. We are hoping that we might have a vaccine by the end of the year. Could it come sooner? Some people say yes, but we also need, besides a vaccine, we need to have medicines and shots that would make people who have this virus better. So it's really a two-pronged thing to prevent people from getting this, and then people who are already infected, prevent them from dying and things happening. So it's a combination of both things. And I meet some really amazing people who are doing this. They're just really smart, and we all have to hope that what's going on will be speeded up. I'm always pushing for a faster. We can't go slowly. We need to move as fast as we can.
Congressman, this question came in from Gabriel Yal from Manila. In an election year, it's abhorrent that political games are being played just to win an election, when they themselves have spoken about all the lives at risk. When we finally come out on the other side of the tunnel on this, will you stand against those who so clearly delayed much needed resources just to further a political agenda, no matter what party they belong to?
Of course, I could care less about the party. I care more about helping people and saving lives. And as I mentioned before, Mitch McConnell, who's the Senate Majority Leader, he has been simply awful with the playing of politics and hurting New York. It's just absolutely awful. And I have no tolerance for it, and I won't tolerate it, and I will keep on denouncing it, whatever he does or what anybody else does. The time for politics is gone. We're now talking about people's lives. We're now talking about making sure that families stay intact. We're about making sure that people have businesses that they've built up through their lifetimes, that the businesses don't fail and that the government helps keep them open. So the demagoguery, across the country, there's always been demagoguery when it comes to New York. We're bigger and we're better and we're brighter, and that's why we live in New York. We all love New York. But unfortunately, there are lots of elected officials across the country who try to use New York as a whipping boy, and they rile up the crowds, and it's frankly not very helpful. And so we are making sure that in the next round of bills, that we get what we need and that the formula is favorable to New York. And again, as I mentioned before, please, please, please fill out the census, because what happens is if we are undercounted and everybody who lives in New York is not counted, we could lose a Congress member because New York's going to probably lose one. We could lose two, and that would be less representation for us, and that would not make sense for any of us. So we must make sure people are fill out the census. I'm sure everybody has filled out the census that's here today, but we have to tell our friends and our neighbors who may not realize, some elderly who may not realize, and others, young people who may not realize or even care and think it doesn't matter. Well, that's wrong. It does matter. So everything that we can do to make sure that people come out is really, really important. And we'll just keep on punching. We'll just make sure that New York gets its fair share and that New York is treated well with respect. We're not asking for anything that we're not entitled to. We're just asking for what we are entitled to. And I'm never going to stop my fight for New York. I'm fortunate to live in New York and raise a family in New York and live in New York, and there's no place I'd rather be.
Congressman, the following question came from Mario Alberto from New Rochelle. The medical experts expect us to experience a second wave of COVID-19 this winter. What is the federal government doing to prepare for a possible second wave? And could New Yorkers expect to see an extension of current federal aid, such as the current expanded unemployment insurance, should New Yorkers suffer another round of economic distress during a second wave of the pandemic?
Well, the strange things about the pandemic is we're really on uncharted waters. We don't really know. We don't know if the warm weather will drive back the virus. Some people think that once it gets a little warmer, the virus won't be as severe. Some people say that it'll have no effect at all. We really just don't know. And then what do we have? If we have another round, how do we make sure that people aren't dying? How do we make sure that lives are being saved? Obviously, as I mentioned before, the vaccine is really important. The vaccine to prevent people from getting the virus, and the vaccine to cure people who have gotten the virus. So that to me is the most important thing. I think that will do more to make our lives go back to a normal state than anything else. But it's very very interesting that some people are not paying attention to what the governors in the different states are telling them what to do. And it makes me really scratch my head when I see all these governors now opening parks and opening beaches and whatever. We haven't done that in New York, and I'm glad, because it's not, we want to make sure that that more people don't die, that we don't have a second wave. And the way you make sure is that you try to prevent people from getting near each other. And that's something we have to take seriously. So if there is a second wave, and I hope that there's not, obviously, we pray that these governors from these other states really understand that, in my opinion, I think it's far too early. Some of these governors are allowing people congregating together and going back to the old ways. I think that's wrong. I think it's too premature. It's too early, and ultimately it will make us have another wave. We should be doing everything possible to prevent another wave, not aiding and abetting it. And I think it's very irresponsible of many of these governors to act the way they're acting. But we're going to keep on fighting. We're going to make sure that New York, we've already seen deaths go down. Now, of course, one death is one death too much. But we've seen it go down, and we want to keep it down. We don't want to see an uptick. But because it's so it's uncharted waters, we really don't know, and that's the truth. So we're going to have to be smart. We're going to have to listen to people like Fauci, who is brilliant, and we're going to have to again, uncharted waters, but we're going to have to do smart things, not foolish things, because people want to go to the beach.
Congressman, one last question, and it comes from David Duarte in Mount Vernon. Portugal has been a country that has better weathered the coronavirus crisis than its European neighbors. Could travel restrictions be lifted earlier for Portugal than for the rest of Europe? Travel restrictions means that they have limited ability to visit if there's an emergency. What travel options are available for emergency? Is there a timeline for this to change?
Well, we are, again, on uncharted waters. So we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. But I will tell you this, that I will make sure, and if people in our community here in New York want to call anything to my attention in terms of help that's needed to reunite families or emergency travel that may have to happen, again, if you call my office, I am more than happy to try my best to help in any way I can. I think it's important that families can reunite, that families can see their loved ones. But again, because we've never had this coronavirus and we've never had a situation like this, it's difficult to say precisely what will happen, but I will absolutely be there in the fight to bring families together if it's at all possible. And, we have to make a judgment at the time whether it makes sense or not make sense. I mean, you want to bring families together, but you don't want to spread the disease. So it's sort of a balancing act. But I do believe it's important for people to unite with their families or reunite with their families. And if there are individual cases that need to have something special, whether it's traveling from here to Portugal or from Portugal to here, I'm happy to try to help in any way I can. And you all know that I have a district office in Mount Vernon. It is different now because we can't stay open all the time now with the new rules because we cannot have person-to-person contact. But if you call the phone number, we'll get back to you. So anything that I can do to help my constituents reunite their families, I'm happy to do it. Certainly Portuguese Americans, I'm happy to do it. However I can help the community, please let me know. However you need the help, please let me know. The Portuguese American citizens and constituents of mine have always been community-oriented, community-minded, and helping in any way of the community. And we want to make sure that whatever you need, you get. So again, please, with individual cases, contact me, and everybody knows how to get hold of me. And whatever I can do, just please feel free to ask. And thank you for doing this. And as I said before, you owe me some bagels and coffee. I'm gonna next breakfast or dinner, I'm gonna eat twice as much to make up for this morning. No. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was really very, very, very nice of you to do this.
Dr. Congress Eliot Engel, we will owe you a nice Portuguese soup because I know just how much you enjoy those.
That's right. Right.
Thank you so much for your input and the time and for your continuous support of the Portuguese American community. Thank you.
Always. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to now introduce the Republic of Portugal Secretary of State to the Communities, Dra. Berta Nunes. É o meu prazer apresentar a Senhora Secretária de Estado das Comunidades Portuguesas, Dra. Berta Nunes.
Boa tarde, obrigada, o prazer é meu e obrigada pelo convite.
A plataforma é sua.
Sim, bom, sobre a questão do Covid, e estive também a ouvir com muita atenção a pessoa, o senador que falou antes, eu queria falar só um pouco sobre Portugal, porque penso que é isso, e as nossas comunidades, e o que podemos fazer em conjunto, porque é isso que me parece ser apropriado. Em relação a Portugal, é certo, e isso tem vindo a ser noticiado na Europa, nos Estados Unidos e noutras partes do mundo, Portugal tem tido, em relação a esta pandemia do coronavírus, um comportamento do ponto de vista não só dos seus responsáveis políticos, mas também do ponto de vista de toda a população, de todas as pessoas, que nos ajudaram bastante a conter esta pandemia, a não colocar em causa o nosso Serviço Nacional de Saúde, que é um serviço que, apesar de ter tido problemas de desinvestimento durante o tempo da Troika e mesmo todas as necessidades de investimento não estão satisfeitas, mesmo nos últimos anos, por causa de toda a crise que vivemos a partir de 2008, 2009, e nós sabemos que durante as crises são muitas vezes e quase sempre os sistemas de saúde, de educação, segurança social, que são os sistemas públicos que sofrem. Por isso nós, apesar de tudo isso, temos um sistema de saúde que não só respondeu, e somos um dos países com menos mortes por 1 milhão de habitantes quando comparamos com a Europa, e nem sequer estou a comparar com outros países do mundo, nem com os Estados Unidos, estamos a falar ainda da Europa, em que a pandemia está numa fase relativamente semelhante entre os vários países, com alguma diferença, mas estamos todos numa fase em que estamos a diminuir o número de mortos e a diminuir o número de internamentos e a diminuir o número de novos casos. É verdade que há países que tiveram mais dificuldades, mas Portugal soube tomar medidas atempadamente. Estou a falar das medidas de distanciamento social e outras medidas, nomeadamente o estado de emergência, que no fundo foram tomadas pela Assembleia da República, com um consenso muito alargado entre todas as forças políticas, e isso para nós em Portugal, do meu ponto de vista, foi muito importante, porque esse consenso fez com que as pessoas confiassem mais nas decisões dos seus líderes políticos, do seu governo, dos partidos que estão na Assembleia da República, confiassem no Presidente da República, e ao confiarem aderiram mais às medidas e os resultados estão à vista. É verdade que, como eu disse, o nosso sistema de saúde respondeu bem porque as medidas tomadas também não o levaram ao limite, porque tem vindo a ser reforçado e porque é um sistema bem organizado, um sistema baseado nos cuidados primários de saúde, mas com muito boa organização hospitalar. E assim chegamos a um ponto em que já não estamos em estado de emergência, passamos a um estado de calamidade, estamos a desconfinar, ou seja, gradualmente estamos a permitir a volta de atividades económicas, numa primeira fase pequenos comércios, cabeleireiros, etc. E cada 15 dias, esse é o plano, há um plano, cada 15 dias há uma avaliação das medidas e se estiver tudo a correr bem, ou seja, se não houver um aumento de contágios muito significativo, e se estiver a correr bem, esse desconfinamento progressivo e a volta a uma vida que é o novo normal, não é o normal anterior, porque agora fala-se muito do novo normal, porque vamos ter que viver com o vírus, como foi dito aqui, até termos a vacina ou até termos tratamento. Mas o que me parece que é importante referir aqui é Portugal tem sido bem sucedido nesta luta, neste combate, e porque nós também temos tido, e o nosso governo tem tido uma postura que é importante referir aqui. Nós estamos realmente numa realidade nova, com muita incerteza. Não vivemos esta situação antes, não sabemos, não conhecemos o vírus suficientemente, temos por isso dificuldade em fazer previsões, há muita incerteza. Mas neste contexto de incerteza, o que é importante é também guiar-nos por aquilo que são os factos e a evidência científica. E o nosso primeiro-ministro, António Costa, e o governo e o Presidente da República tiveram sempre o cuidado de ouvir os especialistas, os epidemiologistas, os especialistas nas várias áreas, matemáticos, enfim, de saúde, claro, certamente, e tiveram sempre o cuidado de tomar decisões baseadas na melhor evidência científica, que é uma evidência ainda escassa, como disse, ainda sabemos pouco sobre este vírus, mas é sobre a evidência que existe que as decisões devem ser tomadas e devem sempre ser acompanhadas e avaliadas. Em relação às nossas comunidades, particularmente na Secretaria de Estado das Comunidades, que eu agora sou responsável, tivemos um trabalho bastante intenso, porque muitos portugueses foram apanhados por esta situação, quando vários países começaram a tomar medidas de cancelar, fechar os espaços aéreos, criar dificuldades às viagens, e isso de facto criou muitas dificuldades a muitos portugueses, e ainda algumas delas não estão resolvidas, mas a grande maioria das situações estão resolvidas, e temos continuado a acompanhar todas as situações através da nossa rede de consulados e embaixadas, que tem feito um trabalho muito importante em articulação com a Secretaria de Estado e com o Ministério dos Negócios Estrangeiros e com os serviços consulares aqui em Portugal. Por isso estamos atentos às nossas comunidades. As nossas comunidades estão espalhadas por muitos países. Os Estados Unidos é um dos países onde temos uma grande comunidade, uma importante comunidade, que eu ainda não tive o gosto de visitar, mas que irei logo que possível, quando as ligações aéreas assim o permitirem. Mas estamos a acompanhar as situações, os nossos consulados estão com a atividade suspensa em muitos países, seguindo as recomendações de cada país, mas isso não significa que não estejam a atender, mesmo presencialmente quando é urgente, em caso de agendamento, com agendamento prévio, e estão a atender telefonicamente, a receber e-mails, a falar com as pessoas, a acompanhá-las, e sempre que é necessário também fazem o atendimento presencial com as devidas cautelas. É evidente que nesta fase em que, pelo menos na Europa, estamos a desconfinar, os consulados vão também gradualmente e progressivamente, sempre tendo em conta as recomendações das autoridades locais, começar a retomar a sua atividade normal, e esperamos que isso aconteça o mais rapidamente possível. E queria dizer que estamos muito atentos e muito conscientes de que as nossas comunidades precisam da nossa atenção e do nosso apoio, e é para isso que cá estamos e continuaremos a fazer este trabalho. Podem contar connosco, e por outro lado nós também contamos com vocês, e quando digo com vocês não digo só com os nossos consulados e as nossas embaixadas, digo com o nosso movimento associativo, de que vocês são de facto um bom exemplo, um ótimo exemplo, que eu estou a conhecer agora um pouco melhor, mas de que desde já eu quero dar os parabéns por todo o trabalho que têm feito, não só na promoção de Portugal, da língua portuguesa, do nosso país, mas também no apoio que dão às nossas comunidades, organizando-se em associações, que é uma parte muito importante do trabalho que nós temos que fazer nas nossas comunidades, tem que ser mesmo com as associações, e vocês são de facto um bom exemplo. Queria agradecer e queria dar-vos os parabéns e dizer que estamos disponíveis para continuar a trabalhar e podem contar connosco.
Obrigada, Sr. Secretário de Estado das Comunidades Portuguesas. Tenho o prazer de apresentar o Presidente do Conselho das Comunidades Portuguesas na América do Norte, o meu colega e amigo Dr. Paulo Martins, diretamente de Boston, Massachusetts.
Muito bom dia e boa tarde para todos. É um prazer também participar aqui nesta Town Hall Meeting. Um agradecimento especial para a Nypalc e também todo o apoio para esta região de Nova York, bastante afetada por esta situação do coronavírus. As minhas perguntas são duas perguntas para a Sra. Secretária de Estado. Uma relativamente, estima-se que existem mais de 20 mil portugueses indocumentados aqui nos Estados Unidos, muitos deles a viverem há muitos anos aqui e com famílias divididas entre filhos nascidos em Portugal e filhos americanos, mas que muitos deles ainda se encontram em situação de irregularidade e possivelmente nesta altura sem trabalho e sem qualquer tipo de ajuda, pelo menos a nível federal. Poderá haver alguma ajuda local, dependendo da região onde residem. A minha pergunta neste sentido era se existe algum plano por parte da Secretaria de Estado para ajudar os nossos compatriotas nesta situação. A outra pergunta que eu tenho é relativamente a uma última nota enviada à comunicação social, em que tomamos conhecimento que há disponibilidade de 600 mil euros para o apoio ao associativismo na diáspora, do qual também gostaria de saber qual o critério de qualificação destas associações e quando é que estas associações poderão receber ou poderão receber estes apoios.
Bom, obrigada pelas perguntas e boa tarde. O Conselho das Comunidades também é um órgão muito importante e os conselheiros são um instrumento importante de estarmos mais próximos das nossas comunidades. Em relação à primeira pergunta dos indocumentados, nós não temos um plano para os indocumentados. O que nós fizemos foi dar orientações à nossa embaixada e aos nossos consulados para verificarem as situações sociais de maior vulnerabilidade e, de facto, os indocumentados são uma das situações mais complicadas, mas também verificamos que têm apoios locais, como disse, apoios também das associações e de outras instituições que são apoiadas até por empresas portuguesas e por associações portuguesas e por outras ONGs. Se nós, em relação aos indocumentados, o que nós podemos dizer é que estamos a fazer um trabalho, e esse trabalho tem vindo a ser feito, de informação, de sensibilização, para tentar reduzir o número de indocumentados. Porque todos os anos é feita uma avaliação pelos serviços dos Estados Unidos de imigração sobre o número de indocumentados, neste caso de Portugal, e temos vindo a verificar que esse número tem vindo a ser reduzido, tem vindo a reduzir-se. Por isso, pensamos que é nesse caminho que temos que continuar, tentando que os nossos concidadãos não se coloquem em situações de risco, que também empresários que muitas vezes podem estar a contratar esses nossos cidadãos que não têm autorização de residência, não estão legais, que tentem ajudar a resolver a situação e que evitem que de facto se manter esse tipo de situações. Isso não é de forma nenhuma desejável, porque essa situação de estar ilegal tem muitos riscos, é certo, embora em Nova York, que é uma região, é um distrito mais tolerante, assim como outros distritos democratas que têm uma política em relação à imigração mais tolerante. No entanto, por isso nessa situação em particular há mais apoios, há menos discriminação, mas no entanto as pessoas deviam evitar e devem evitar colocar-se nessas situações que são situações de risco. O facto de nós estarmos a ser avaliados, e estamos a fazer essa avaliação conjunta com as autoridades dos Estados Unidos sobre o número de indocumentados e o facto de eles estarem a diminuir é muito bom, porque também daí resulta a manutenção da possibilidade de que os portugueses possam entrar nos Estados Unidos sem ser obrigados a ter um visto. Se nós tivéssemos uma situação em que tivessem a aumentar o número de indocumentados, quer dizer que também podíamos estar em risco de qualquer cidadão português que quisesse ir para os Estados Unidos de ser exigido um visto. Por isso essa situação dos indocumentados tem vários aspectos, certamente neste contexto estaremos atentos, que instrumentos é que nós temos para os apoiar e queremos apoiá-los, não queremos de forma nenhuma deixar nenhum cidadão para trás, nem nenhum cidadão que necessite de apoio por apoiar. Os nossos consulados, quando têm conhecimento, têm instrumentos de apoio que é o repatriamento, se for esse o desejo da pessoa, se estiver numa situação realmente muito difícil e desejar voltar a Portugal. Nós temos esse instrumento no regulamento consular, que é o repatriamento. Temos também um outro instrumento, que é a prestação de socorros, mas o que nós temos feito é também trabalhar com as associações e com as ONGs locais e com as autoridades, de forma a poder prestar o apoio que, em cada caso concreto, se mostrar o mais adequado. Por isso, nós não podemos ter um plano igual para todos, não podemos ter um plano como, por exemplo, vamos repatriar, não, isso depende da vontade de cada um. Temos que acompanhar, e temos essa obrigação de acompanhar as situações que temos conhecimento, e essas orientações foram dadas a todos os consulados e embaixadas, no sentido, não só nos Estados Unidos, mas em todos os países, no sentido de estarem atentos às situações das nossas comunidades e dos cidadãos portugueses que possam estar realmente em situações de risco ou em situações de vulnerabilidade, e no caso concreto dos Estados Unidos, a situação dos indocumentados é mais problemática. E falando nas associações, e passando à segunda pergunta, nós temos desde há vários anos um programa de apoio ao movimento associativo. Esse programa está enquadrado numa lei já de 2017, antes disso havia uma outra lei que também já dava apoio ao movimento associativo, e todas as informações sobre quem é que se pode candidatar, como se candidatar, etc., está no portal das comunidades. No portal das comunidades, na área dos apoios sociais e culturais, tem lá toda a informação, tem a lei, tem um manual que responde às várias questões, e em relação a essa nota em que dissemos que temos este ano a previsão de apoiar com 600 mil euros, resulta já de uma avaliação que foi feita pelos nossos serviços, das associações que se candidataram e que terão um apoio durante este ano de 2020, e esse apoio vai ascender a cerca de 600 mil euros distribuídos por associações nos vários países do mundo. Por isso, esse programa de apoio ao movimento associativo é um programa que já existe e tem vindo a apoiar as associações. Nos últimos anos tem apoiado cerca de 500, 600 mil euros em cada ano. Este ano é à volta de 600 mil euros o apoio global às associações que tiveram os seus projetos apoiados.
Muito obrigada, Sr. Secretário de Estado das Comunidades Portuguesas, por estar connosco esta manhã, aliás, a sua tarde. Agradecemos a sua participação neste evento. I am honored to introduce next New York State Senator Anna Kaplan. In 2019, Senator Kaplan honored the New York Portuguese American community by introducing a Senate resolution commemorating the observance of Portugal Day in the state of New York. She is also the chair of the Committee on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business, and has under her jurisdiction the Portuguese stronghold of Maniola. Welcome, New York State Senator Anna Kaplan.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for including me in this wonderful Zoom program that you have. I'm honored to be among your wonderful, distinguished guests this morning. It's been really wonderful to hear our great Congressman Engel speaking, and also the Portuguese Secretary of State. Regrettably, I don't understand Portuguese, but one of these days, maybe I will take some lessons and try to at least get some of the words that are very important and learn those. As you may all know, I represent the 7th District in New York State. I'm honored to be representing this entire district, and part of this district is Maniola, which is a home to a great community that has many members of Portuguese American descent. My district is really wonderfully diverse. I have people from all over the world, and it was wonderful to join the Maniola community and the Portuguese American community last year in the parade. It was a wonderful time to see everybody out, the vibrant colors, the celebrations, the traditions, and to see all of that and experience it for myself. Actually, my office is also very close to Mignola. My district office is in Carl Place, and I'm looking forward to doing more stuff with the Portuguese American community. And I know this year we won't have the parade because we all have to really do our part in making sure that we stay safe and we turn this around for all of us, not just in my district, not just in this state, but in the entire country and globally. But I am looking forward to, and I make a promise and pledge to you, come next year, I'm gonna be there with you, participating in the parade, making sure that I get my Portuguese fix on all the different foods, and see a lot of you hopefully coming out then.
We have a few questions for you, Senator. This question comes from Liz Ferreira, President of the Mount Vernon Portuguese American Center. Are there any grants or financial help available for our 501c3 nonprofit organizations now that the $10,000 grants appear to have been exhausted? Also, what support is available for nonprofits and associations that are all volunteer but need financial support, which is the case of the grand majority of our community centers spread throughout New York State?
So I have to tell you, back in March, I was in Albany. We had a deadline of March 31st to pass our budget. It was a very, very difficult budget for all of us. We were already dealing with $10 to $15 billion deficit. And unfortunately, we don't have anything that could be helpful with the 501c3s in New York State, but we all understand the importance of the work that these organizations do and the support that they give to our communities. And we want to make sure that we do whatever we can to help them out. The federal government put out the PPP loans. So that's a source. The first round, the 501c3s were not included, but in the second round, they were included, where people can go ahead and get those loans and help and make sure that they can go and move forward. With the PPP loans, if you can show that you're spending 75% of what you're getting on employees, meaning giving employees their checks, paychecks, then these loans can be forgivable and you wouldn't have to pay them. But if there are no employees, as we know, some of these not-for-profits are really staffed and organized by individuals who care deeply with great convictions about the entities that they represent and work for. If you don't have a lot of employees and you will not meet that 75% criteria, it's still very important for you to go ahead and apply for those, because it would allow you to get loans at 1% interest rate, which is, as we all can agree, is a very low interest rate to help you go through this difficult time. If you're employing people and you're just putting them back on payroll, great. You might not have to repay this loan. And the other 25% out of that 100% could be used for rents, for utility, for costs. But if you don't have the employees, the loans are not forgivable, but it's still a wonderful source for you to tap into to get very low interest rate loans to make sure that you're still working and hopefully overcome this very difficult time.
The following question comes from Fernando Ascenso from Pleasantville. This applies particularly to the case of many Portuguese Americans who are small business owners. When we think of our towns, we think of our barbers, spas, restaurants, and favorite stores. The heartbeat of all our communities are the small businesses. Other than the PPP program designed to keep people employed, what are you doing to help businesses with other expenses in their growing debt level? For instance, rent, gas, electric supplies, overhead. Also, have we thought of any incentives for businesses to open when this is all over? Reduce red tape, low interest loans?
So I couldn't agree with you more. New York small businesses are the backbone of our economy, backbone of our communities. People who run them are our friends, our neighbors, our family members. And we have to do more. I'm honored to be chair of the Small Business Economic Development and Commerce in New York State. I know that it is a very, very difficult time for a lot of our small businesses right now. But I think we've taken some steps to help with the situation. Under governor's 90-day executive order, there is eviction freeze. So to all of you who have small businesses, I say, if you can afford to pay your rents, please do so. But if you can't, we have the executive order that will be there to help you out. There's also afforded protections when it comes to utilities, to water. So no one's utilities or water will be turned off as a result of non-payment. We are going through a very unprecedented times. We can all agree. And we can all agree it's been very hard. We've made a lot of sacrifices. I know a lot of my residents, a lot of residents in the state of New York are making these sacrifices every day. And we know that we have to do more to help out. But my first recommendation to every one of your members could be, call up your landlord. Have an honest conversation with them. Call up your utility and have an honest conversation with them. They all want you to be there. They want to make sure that also you succeed, because when you succeed, they are succeeding. If you're having a hard time, tell them what your capabilities are, and hopefully they would want to work with you and come up with solutions, because your win is their win. I also have worked very hard and have done 2 webinars. They are online on my website and on Facebook. I invite your members to go ahead and review those. There are a lot of good answers to a lot of good questions that have come up. Very good source of information for a lot of people. Furthermore, I want to also tell all of your viewers about SBDC, which is Small Business Development Centers. These are wonderful resources that are geographically spread throughout the state, and they're there to be helping small businesses, giving them access to capital, advising them, helping them with marketing maybe, with technology, with regulatory compliance. It's a wonderful resource. They give very at-cost seminars to help people, and really a good way for all of your members to tap into information that could be very helpful to them moving forward. New York also has 24 centers. They are called Entrepreneurship Assistance Centers, again, throughout the state. I was lucky enough last summer, myself and a couple of my staff members traveled the state and visited 9 of those centers. Again, a wonderful resource for a lot of small businesses, a lot of minority and woman-owned businesses. They're there to guide you, to give you instruction, to train you, to help you to make sure the plan that you have going forward is a plan that could succeed. Please look those up and tap into those wonderful resources that are there to help you out. There's a third one also called SCORE, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit U.S. Small Business Association. Again, helping small businesses, doing webinars on demand. They also have a library of archived resources that are aimed to help small businesses. I have a lot of bills that I'm looking forward to moving ahead with once we are past this difficult time and we are starting our new beginning, new normal. I don't want to, in interest of time, I don't want to go too much in all the details, but one of them is very important to me, and I think very important for small business businesses. It's a small business tax cut proposal. This proposal would enable small businesses pay less in corporate tax and lowering the corporate tax from 5% to 4%. Increasing the threshold from 290,000 to 390,000. Also, in addition, it would expand the small business exemption from 5 to 15% of the net business income that's under $250,000, which is about 95% of the businesses, small businesses in New York State. I'm looking forward to doing all of this. We are going to be also holding hearings with Assembly and the Senate to find out and hone on how this coronavirus has impacted our small businesses and what we can do moving forward, going forward, and finding solutions to help the small businesses. One thing I would like to really stress here is I would like every one of the small business members who are here and listening to this. You need to really think about your business and think about how you need to move on forward after this. Our new normal is not going to be like our old normal. We also have to take part and make sure we are making adjustments. We are doing things that would be helpful moving forward, and what we can do to make changes in our own businesses that would help us succeed. I hope that has been enough information for your viewers.
Yes, there's a following question from Steve Cruz from Yonkers. For college students who are dependent on work, study, or summer employment to help pay for college, what is the state and federal government doing to ensure that their studies continue uninterrupted because of an inability to work due to COVID-19?
So as I'm sure all of you know, Governor Cuomo on Friday said that the schools and the colleges will be closed. K through 12 and colleges will be closed for the rest of this term, meaning end of June. We still have not made any decision going forward with respect to summer and fall. That should be coming in. I think what we try really to do is to find out what we can do as soon as we possibly can. For that, we rely on our health experts. We want to get guidance from them because we've all made huge sacrifices. We want to make sure that the next steps that we're taking are all good and safe steps, and that we're not going to be going back and making the same mistakes if we reopen. So I don't really know what those answers are right now, but I do know that the governor has put forward an open advisory board containing 15 representatives from SUNY, CUNY, and other colleges, independent coalition of different colleges, to see what we could do to help our students. And as soon as we have that information, I'm more than happy to share that with all of your viewers.
Thank you. The following question comes from Orlando Frade from Mineola. Reports that the Javits Center was more than half empty and nursing homes mounting up the death tolls. Why were our seniors neglected and treated so poorly?
So I have to say, you might have all heard me before. I believe our seniors are really a big part of our communities. They built these communities that we are benefiting from now. And we always have to do whatever we can to advocate for them and also for our young children, because those are two categories of people who can't really advocate for themselves very well. And as elected, to me, that's very important. So with respect to the Javits Center, I am grateful, just like every other New Yorker, to FEMA and to Army Corps of Engineers to coming and setting up and helping us in this very difficult time. As you all know, New York was the epicenter for this. Not just the city of New York, Queens, Long Island, Westchester, we've all been impacted in huge numbers. So for that, we thank them, and we can't say thank you enough. Having said that, the Javits Center has had over 1,000, about 1,094 patients coming and going through it, which really was very incredible in a time that we really needed that help, and our hospitals throughout the state were really suffering. So to have had them there was a big help to us for the entire state dealing with this. But with that, I believe red tape that was instituted by federal government, which included 5 pages of incredibly prospective requirements for a patient to move from one place to be transferred to Javits Center, was one of the reasons why patients were not moved there as easily. And as I said, I will always advocate for the seniors, for every senior in my district and the entire state of New York. But I think it's really important for everyone to understand, state of New York does not run the nursing homes. These nursing homes are profitable businesses. They are run by their own administration. We're there to oversee. We're there to regulate them and make sure that they're doing the right thing. But we are not running them. And I think a lot of the nursing homes were really late and very slow in notifying Department of Health that they needed help. But having said that, now that we know that they need help, we took action. The governor made actually changes that if a nurse was sick, their quarantine time should have been even more than 14 days before they go back and help the patients in these nursing homes. And having said that, I want every one of your members to know there is, Attorney General is aware of this. She has put in a hotline asking people, if you know of a circumstance that a nurse, that a senior is not being taken care of in a nursing home, or a nursing home is not working to the best of their abilities, they need to call and inform Attorney General, and they will look into the matter. And if you don't feel comfortable calling the Attorney General's office, by all means, call me up, and I will make sure that I will sound those alarms and make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
One final question, Senator, and it comes from Maria Diaz from Carl Place. The governor keeps saying New York is broke. Are there any ideas floating around about how we will handle the financial toll on New York?
So, since this is my last question, I want to thank you, Isabel. I want to thank Tony and the entire board for putting this together. I'm incredibly privileged to be part of this. It is a very difficult time for all of us. No doubt about it. State of New York, as I started first, I did say we had a very difficult budget where we started with $10 to $15 billion deficit. That's very hard place to come back from. And it's really imperative that the federal government steps in and helps us. You know, 19 years ago, when September 11 happened, even though it happened in New York, I think everyone throughout this country felt it and understood that if it happened here, it can happen anywhere within their communities. There is a reason why we are called the United States of America. All of us together, we can lend a hand and help each other. New York is a giver state. We are proud of that. We have a lot of hardworking residents here who work really hard, who pay their taxes and send a lot of funds to Washington. It is now time for Washington to answer back and help us out. And I know your community is very civic-minded. I have to tell you, I think people in the state of New York are very civic-minded. Every corner of the state, I look around and the stories that I hear, we all want to pitch in and do our part and help out. But this is something that we really need help from federal government. Just like Congressman Engel said, we need possibly to also put in jobs out there and make sure that we are doing whatever we can to create more jobs and have more residents working, and whereby when they're working, they're paying their taxes, and those taxes are beneficial to all of us for the entire country. I know in my heart, New Yorkers are resilient. I know we will come back from this. I know we will come back better, and I know we will come back stronger. I'd like to end this on a very positive note. One of our residents, not my residents, a resident from Babylon, yesterday a couple was supposed to get married. I can just imagine, looking forward to and planning a wedding for over a year probably, to have a wonderful celebration, and for this couple not to have been able to do that. But they were all dressed up and they wore their mask and they got into their truck, and they had a truck, and they went on a food drive and collected food to distribute to Island Harvest, where the benefit of those foods will go to a family that really needs that help right now. How beautiful is that? For a young couple who this day was supposed to be their very special day, they made it very special by doing something totally different and helping a community that needs that help. I know, as I said before, we are resilient, we will overcome this, and we will move forward better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Portugal. God bless state of New York. And God bless this United States of America.
Thank you, Senator Kaplan. It was a pleasure to have you, and thank you for your time. We look forward to celebrating the Portugal Day Parade next year with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It is my absolute pleasure now to introduce our good friend of our community. Senator Carlucci is the chairman of Committee on Mental Health and Development. The senator has jurisdiction of the Portuguese stronghold of Austin and Spring Valley, Rockland County. Senator, the screen is yours.
Great. Well, hola, thank you for having me. Bom dia. I have my, can you see that?
Oh, make Portuguese count.
Yes. I was so impressed when I saw this when we were together in Ossining the other day. Now it's a couple months ago. That was the end of January. And now, time flies, and, it's a crazy time. But I really appreciate you having me on today, and for all that everyone on this group is doing to make sure we're keeping our community safe and moving forward in this time. So I missed the opening. I had gotten a call in between, so I didn't hear. Did you ask me a specific question, or? I
was just introducing you, Senator.
Oh, great.
So do you want to do an introduction, or should we go straight to the questions?
I guess we can go straight to questions. I know everyone has been patient on the line, and we had some great speakers. My partner, Anna Kaplan, up in the Senate, and my former boss, Congressman Eliot Engel, who I worked for 15 years ago.
Wonderful. Okay, so this question comes from Gabriel Leal from Manila. We do not know the future, but this COVID-19, it seems it's taking a little longer than anyone hoped or expected. 26 million are out of work. Thousands were living paycheck to paycheck and now starving. We had to deploy the military to hand out meals. Police are responding to 7 times more to suicide calls in lockdown states like California. What exactly is the plan to reopen the economy and your view on it?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And the situation facing us is difficult, and it's so unprecedented. There's no doubt about it. And I understand that individuals, and I just got a call in between while I was watching the previous speakers about people being so anxious about getting back to work, and rightfully so, and getting back to work and getting back to normal. However, we need to remain diligent and make sure we're protecting the most vulnerable among us. Even though the numbers are looking up, you know, we're still seeing around 300 new deaths every day here in the state of New York. And I agree with Governor Cuomo that some regions where we see less cases, we may be able to open sooner than places like here in Westchester and Rockland. But we need to be diligent and monitoring the infection rate. You know, that's really what we need to do. And we can't be afraid if we have to reinstate New York on pause if things do take a bad turn. But meanwhile, I believe the government is taking unprecedented steps to provide for its residents. And at the federal level with the CARES Act and the subsequent stimulus check, and we heard Congressman Engel talk earlier about the need for making sure that the next stimulus plan that comes out of Congress, that it does provide funding to state and local governments. That's going to be essential because yes, we've had the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, where small businesses can apply for essentially a grant, a loan that gets forgiven if they meet certain criteria. But all of that will be for naught if we don't protect our state and local governments. That means our schools, that means our police, our firefighters, our hospitals. This is essential. So we need to make sure that happens. You know, at the state level, we passed a robust paid family leave program. And we've been able to put on the books the deferment of mortgages and eviction protections. However, I believe that there is a lot more that can be done. You've heard about the contact tracing. And this is really exciting because the contact tracing, you know, you look at our cell phones and we all have our phones, you know, our smartphones. And it's really interesting because they have the ability to track everywhere we go. And so what we have to be careful of is balance privacy against our protection. And so the idea is now we can have people sign in and say, hey, if you were exposed, if you were close to someone that later has become infected or has been infected with COVID-19 or whatever the future disease is, you could be automatically notified about that. So I think contact tracing is going to be very important. And I believe that we in government need to get the rules right so that we can protect people's individual privacy, but we can also use modern technology to our advantage. I think that the contact tracing with our cell phones is really could be a groundbreaker and can be a game changer in terms of beating back COVID-19, but also future contagious diseases that might rear its ugly head. The other thing is about simple things like taking the temperature of people. We've seen companies like Walmart and other companies take the temperature of their employees. What we're trying to do in New York is allow for, let's say you're going into a supermarket, that the supermarket would be able to take your temperature as you go into the supermarket. Now, I've been working with some of the supermarkets and the issue has come up that in New York State, since we have such robust laws on the books in regards to civil rights, that if you were to get your temperature taken just to enter a store, that could be a violation of your civil rights. So I'm working right now to amend civil rights law to make sure that we can, if a business wants to implement that practice, that we can do that. Now, I know that taking your temperature is not foolproof. That is not 100% guarantee, but it is one indicator that we could say, hey, if you have a temperature, you're not able to enter the store. So these are some of the things that we have to modernize to get our economy going, to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Oh, thank you. The next question comes from Susana da Silva Oliveira, a WBE steel fabricator business owner in Yonkers. Essential employers are seeing a problem with employees not wanting to return to work because of the CARES Act boost, where many people are making more money at home than what they were making at work. How are employers supposed to call back their employees under these circumstances?
Yeah, it's a good question. you know, I think this is one of the things where we have to have that balance. And I believe that we have to be able to, under the PPP, you have to be able to bring back your employees in order to cover for that. So I think this is a balance. We're not going to be able to take people off unemployment that have signed up for it. By the way, you know, this has been a big issue in my office. You know, even though our office is physically closed, the phone lines are open. So I encourage anyone to give me a call so that we can help you with your problem. But unemployment has been the big issue. We've had a month now where people have been trying to apply and have not been able to. It's slowly moving ahead, but it's not in that way. I think what we have to do is first, you know, if we're just talking about people that want to stay home and don't want to go back to work because, you know, they just, they feel that, that they just don't want to do that, you know, that's one thing. The other thing is about if people are scared to go back to work. And that's where we really have to reimagine, and we have to have new protocols in place, whether it's a school teacher or a private, in a private office, that we're going to have to reimagine and redevelop the way our workspaces are. Now, this is a work in progress because obviously it's unprecedented, but best practices are going to need to be developed for a private office, for a school. And what I mean there is how far apart are desks? Are we working in shifts? Are we taking advantage of telecommuting? I mean, what I found is just in my office in the Senate, you know, of course, we love to have those face-to-face interactions. And we love to have people just walk in off the street. And we know that some people just don't have access to technology to be able to reach out and even do things like we're doing today. So we have to make sure that we're fighting against the digital divide, that we're providing more access to people, whether it's making sure they have internet access, to also the knowledge of how to use new software programs and new technologies, things as simple as Zoom. We want to make sure that more people have access to that. So I think what I've seen is that people can be just as productive working from home, that it's not about just the 9 to 5, it's about what do you get done in that time. And that's something that I'm a big advocate for, that it is tough. It's getting away from the way that we've worked for, you know, a couple hundred years. You know, you show up to work, you work that 8-hour shift or whatever it is, and then you go home. But instead of that, we have to start looking at, okay, what are you getting done in the day? What is it? You know, we could be busy working, but if we're not working towards progress and we're not making, having results, then, you know, what good is it? And I think this type of environment allows us to do that more. It's not just that you worked 8 hours, it's like, what did you do during the day? And how can we measure that productivity? So I think that's going to be a very important thing. But I understand that balance in terms of how do you incentivize people to come back to work in this time, particularly when there has been unemployment checks that have been put out there. Working in that way will be a challenge. But I think the most important thing is we have to make it easy for people and make them want to come back to work. That's going to be the challenge as well.
The following question comes from Diana Ascenso from Chappaqua. What are your thoughts on societal issues of being locked up, depression, anxiety, drug use? Are we funding for programs to fight those issues? But by the way, we do thank you for keeping those liquor stores open. Handy.
Well, yeah, you know, I chair the Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Committee in the Senate. And this is something that I'm very passionate of because we have, unfortunately, about 130 suicides every day in the United States. Well before COVID-19, this has really been a problem of epidemic proportions. And, you know, I'm hopeful. I know we have all stepped up to the occasion with COVID-19, with this emergency. But we have to make sure that we give that same priority to things like mental illness. To me, first, we have to break down the stigma that is attached to mental health. We have to make sure we're treating mental health the same way we do physical health. And one of the things that I've been working on for some time now is to create a 3-digit number for mental health. So basically a suicide hotline we have a national suicide hotline. It's a 10-digit number. However, when you're in crisis, you don't know that 10-digit number, nor do you easily know to share that with a friend or a loved one. So there's been a whole study that was put out by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, that showed that out of these 3-digit numbers, like 911 or 511, that they could create a new 3-digit number. The number was decided on, it's 988. So when you're in a mental health crisis, you could call 988. Now, the problem is, like our government and our federal government, they've been dragging their feet. So 988 has been established. All we have to do is flip the switch and link in that 988 number to the suicide hotline number. So just like a domain name, you know, if you have, you know, www.nypalc.com, you know, you could link that to another domain name, and you type in that address and it goes to that website. So what I'm saying is, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We could flip the switch today and allow someone that wants to call 988, have it patched into the suicide hotline. That's important because we have trained professionals at that hotline that are working to take those calls and identify crisis and be able to walk them through it and help them in that situation. And I believe that this will save lives. So I've introduced legislation in the New York State Senate that would say, we're not gonna wait for the federal government. In New York, we're gonna do this now. We can do it, and I'll tell you, if the Public Service Commission agreed to it, we could do it today. By the end of the day, people could be calling 988 and it could go to the suicide hotline. So the point in this is that first, by having a 3-digit mental health hotline, what it will do is fight the stigma attached to mental illness. It'll make it commonplace that whether you grow up in Mineola or you grow up in Minneapolis, that you know that there's a 3-digit number that you can call when someone's in crisis. So that's one of many things that we need to do. I just mentioned that because that's tangible. We can do it now. We do have an emotional support hotline, and we have mental health volunteers as well stepping up during this time, and that's been put out by the governor. But again, that's why I say if we just have this 3-digit hotline, we can funnel all the calls in there. And in that time of crisis, you got to meet people where they are. So another thing I just wanted to mention is last year I passed the Suicide Prevention Act of 2019. And basically what that does is it breaks down the cultural competency of our programs. So if someone only speaks Portuguese, or they only speak Creole or Yiddish, we have to make sure that we're providing materials to those people in a language that they understand. We also have to make sure that we're addressing the cultural differences. And in New York State, I mean, we have over 19 million people in New York from every corner of the globe, from every culture represented. And it's our diversity that's our strength. It's our unity that's our power. And that's why we have to work vigorously to really break down those barriers and not disrupt people's cultures, but understand the different cultures, understand the different complexities, and meet people where they are. And we know in every culture, it's difficult to talk about mental health. It's difficult to talk about suicide. And some cultures, it's more taboo than others. But that we have to find a way in that's appropriate and meet people where they are. So this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I believe that just like we've taken this crisis on with COVID-19, we also have to take the mental health crisis on. We need to have the sirens running. Like I said, that statistic of about 130 people every day in the United States take their own life. And that's not including the suicidal attempts. That's not including the suicidal ideations, the thoughts that people have about suicide. So this is an issue that I think if we really focus on, we can make a dramatic difference and help so many people live, but also live a better quality of life.
And the final question comes from Fernando Ascenso from Chapapla as well. Can you share any information on the promising Eliot drug? Is testing open and available to everyone?
So what we know right now is that the drug that we're talking about has been given the FDA emergency authorization use for, it's been approved to treat COVID-19. This means that there is little information and testing done right now. But we've seen, what we have seen is that this has yielded some positive results. It's an antiviral medication. It doesn't cure COVID-19, but it has shown to shorten the time and recovery in some people. So this may be critical to prevent individuals from dying from this virus. We haven't heard much on whether there's widespread availability. And that's where we have to stay tuned as to what are the merits of this drug, and we have to more adequately scrutinize them. So we have heard, some cases where people have had access to the drug. We're hearing mixed results. And this is one where we have to let the doctors, the scientists really guide us in this way. Because I've heard mixed things. I've been doing these Facebook Live events every Monday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Please join me on Facebook Live. And I've had some doctors on, some scientists. Actually, on tomorrow, I have a supermarket operator talking about the food supply and safe protocols that they're undertaking. But I mention that because I've heard mixed results. You Google online and you find all different, things on this. So I think we have to make sure we're following the experts, we're following the CDC and the New York State Department of Health on these issues of this medication and any of these medications.
Thank you, Senator Carlucci, for your time and for your and for spending some time with us and for all the information that you relay to our community. It's much appreciated.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Look forward to seeing you all in person soon. And also, we were planning to have Portuguese American Day in the New York State Senate. I know Senator Kaplan was helping lead the charge on a resolution. So I'm hopeful that in the future we can do that. But also, I'm running for Congress to join Congressman Engel. So I look forward to joining the Portuguese American Caucus if I'm successful in that endeavor, and bringing that idea of Portuguese American Day to the United States Capitol to really share and spread the deep, rich culture of the Portuguese American community and share the contributions that our community and all of you have made to our society. My parents had done one of those genealogy things, the tests, and found that we have a little bit percentage of Portuguese. So I'm excited about that. It's a tiny Carlucci, it's Italian, but not so far off that we have a little bit of Portuguese. So that's a new exciting thing that we're learning, So, well, thank you so much for having me, and look forward to seeing everybody in person soon.
Senator Carlucci, we will hold you to your word to have us meet you up in Congress. Okay?
Yes, amen.
Thank you so much. I am now honored to introduce a wonderful friend of our community, the Consul General of Portugal in New York, Doutora Maria de Fatima Mendes. É prazer enorme apresentar a nossa Consul Geral de Portugal em Nova York, Doutora Maria de Fatima Mendes.
Muito bom dia, muito obrigada pelo vosso convite e pela vossa gentileza. I would like to thank you for this invitation, and allow me a few words just in English to say that I share totally what Congressman Eliot Engel said about the beautiful relationship between Portugal and the United States, and as well as what he says about the period we are living in. We are living in an uncharted territory, and that's the main reason why sometimes it's difficult to take decisions or to proceed forward. I would like to congratulate both Senator Kaplan and David Carlucci for their words regarding the Portuguese community and their commitment to their engagement as state senators, and as well as what Congressman Eliot said about the census that was taken as well by Senator Carlucci. I, as even being a diplomat, I participated in the census. So I hope that all my fellow patriots and Portuguese American will participate as well. Gostaria de seguir as palavras da Sra. Secretária de Estado das Comunidades e dizer aqui 2 ou 3 aspectos que me parecem os mais importantes. E como temos os nossos convidados em língua inglesa, eu permitir-me dizer em inglês. I would like to underline that we were very lucky in Portugal for different reasons. One of them, as for me as a career diplomat for the past 35 years, it was amazing the instructions I had received regarding COVID-19 due to the fact that our Secretary of State is a doctor, and is a doctor with a PhD in public health and community health. So for us, when I read the instructions, I realized that were instructions for a consul and for other consuls around the world, but with the norms and the eyes as well as a politician, as a committed person, but as well as a doctor. And that was something very lucky and at the same time very unique. I presume that other European countries do not have their members of government in what regards communities being doctors. So that was something different. No que diz respeito a Portugal, e como a Sra. Secretária de Estado referiu, nós de facto tivemos uma situação muito invulgar, mas que permitiu a coesão. There was cohesion and mainly consensus among our authorities in what regards, first of all, our decision of emergency due to our constitution. We had 3 periods of emergency. The last one finished yesterday, and tomorrow, from today on, we'll have a calamity period. It's totally different, as our constitution doesn't allow us more periods of emergency in a row, and as well as what happened with our main institutions, the Assembly of the Republic, our Parliament, our government, and our President of the Republic, and the opposition. Everyone understood that this was a major, major moment, and that we had to be all together in order to fight for this virus and to try to move on and to navigate in uncharted waters. Portanto, isso foi uma das razões principais para o nosso, se assim se pode dizer, não direi sucesso, mas uma situação menos gravosa do que outros parceiros europeus e outros países no mundo, e era uma das coisas que eu queria assinalar. Em relação às nossas comunidades e ao nosso Consulado-Geral. O nosso Consulado-Geral, como sabem, tem o atendimento presencial suspenso, mas está o atendimento do ponto de vista de e-mail, todos os dias, das 9 da manhã às 10 da noite. Hoje é o primeiro domingo, desde 17 de março, que eu disse aos funcionários que vissem só de manhã e que não vissem da parte da tarde. O nosso trabalho não é só feito através do e-mail. Nós comunicamos a Lisboa, nós preparamos várias situações, nós indicamos com a nossa embaixada em coordenação as situações que necessitem de um acompanhamento especial, e há algumas, e nós também acompanhamos os casos de pedidos muito especiais que possam precisar da nossa presença. Mas temos de ter em atenção as instruções das nossas autoridades e as instruções das autoridades locais. E tem que haver aqui um realismo e um bom senso para avançar. Não podemos pôr as pessoas em perigo, nem posso pôr a comunidade e os nossos utentes, nem os funcionários do consulado, porque temos pessoas com problemas de saúde, a primeira das quais até sou eu, e tenho ido ao consulado e tenho andado na rua e tenho andado de um lado para o outro com a maior cautela possível. Portanto, nós estamos a pensar, com tudo o que está a acontecer, que muito provavelmente, dentro de 2 semanas, talvez possamos abrir. E nessa altura eu tenho que ter as obras feitas, já lá esteve uma empresa no domingo passado, por causa das regras de distanciamento e dos separadores entre o público e entre as pessoas que estão a ser atendidas. Portanto, nós temos uma janela por causa dos vistos, que já nos vai ajudar bastante, e nós vamos começar por entregas de documentos, de cartões de cidadão que já foram pedidos, de passaportes que já foram pedidos e estão só para entregar, e tudo o resto vai ter de ser feito, sobretudo, através do correio. Claro que um cartão de cidadão não se pode fazer sem a presença do próprio, um passaporte não se pode fazer sem a presença do próprio, portanto nós vamos estudar como é que vamos corresponder, quer aos nossos concidadãos que até ao final do mês de março estavam marcados e que não puderam, e aqueles que nos têm contactado todos os dias com diferentes situações. Uma coisa é certa, aquilo que eu tinha optado, como sabem, desde que cheguei em 2018, que era a entrega de cartões de cidadão e de passaporte sem agendamento, já não poderá ser assim. Mesmo cartão de cidadão para ser levantado, mesmo passaporte para ser levantado, terá de ter agendamento. Não há outra solução. Eu ainda estou à espera de saber quais são as ordens do prédio onde nós estamos relativamente às pessoas que entram e relativamente a certos aspectos de segurança, porque, como sabem, o espaço que nós ocupamos pertence a Portugal, portanto, pertence à missão junto às Nações Unidas. Nós, a ICEP e o turismo, estamos no andar, a missão está no outro andar. É a missão que nos representa e o prédio vai ter uma reunião para imporem regras a quem entra, a quem lá trabalha e a quem lá vai, porque estão lá outros consulados, todos os países, e, portanto, as regras vão ter que ser aplicadas a todos. E eu ainda não tenho essas regras, porque essa reunião na qual Portugal estará representado ainda não teve lugar. Mas penso que nós, muito provavelmente, dentro de 2 semanas, poderemos recomeçar, mas nestas condições. Se as obras estiverem feitas, se o material de proteção que nós temos comprado e que Lisboa também nos mandou chegar para todos, e também se nós pudermos ter as pessoas dentro das suas regras, e eu espero que todos as sigam, porque todas as pessoas têm sido excepcionais, quer em Portugal, quer aqui, e creio que a nossa vida, nesse aspecto do dia-a-dia, será facilitada. Mas tal como em Portugal se tomaram decisões com base científica, nós ouvimos, como disse a senhora Secretária de Estado, as autoridades em Portugal ouviram os especialistas, tiveram cuidado, tiveram atenção, aqui também feito em Nova Iorque da mesma maneira. Portanto, nós temos de ir tateando aquilo que é possível e de acordo com a situação e a sua evolução, que é um grande ponto de interrogação.
Doutora, já respondeu uma das perguntas, mas temos 2 perguntas que nos foram enviadas que agradecíamos se a doutora pudesse pronunciar sobre elas. Portanto, uma veio da senhora Maria Gomes da Maranec. No caso de alguém falecer durante esta fase de pandemia de Covid-19 e a família tenha o interesse que a pessoa seja sepultada em Portugal e naturalmente que os voos já tenham sido retomados, existem algumas normas especiais?
Muito obrigada pela pergunta. De facto, nós ainda não temos as regras que vão existir. Nós, neste momento, estamos em querer, isto é a minha percepção pessoal, por funcionar há muito tempo nesta vida diplomática, eu presumo que poderá não ser possível. Tem de haver, para já, um documento do delegado de saúde, da Direção de Saúde, da zona onde a pessoa faleceu, deverá provavelmente ser obrigado a dizer se a pessoa faleceu por causa desta situação do Covid-19 ou por outra razão. Não sei se as companhias aéreas, quais que são companhias comerciais, estarão na disposição de transportar os restos mortais das pessoas, e isto aqui depois também tem uma componente pessoal e uma componente emocional muito grande, sem dúvida, e não sei depois se elas poderão chegar a Portugal e seguir o seu curso normal como havia antigamente transladações. Nós ainda não sabemos como é que vai ser com Portugal, como é que vai ser com os Estados Unidos, como é que vai ser transporte, como é que isso se vai passar, porque neste momento não é uma situação concreta para a qual nós tenhamos, ou as autoridades ou as entidades, se tenham já debruçado para tomar decisões sobre isso. Mas creio que a situação poderá, da minha percepção, poderá vir a ser difícil.
Doutora, mais uma pergunta então. Se um cidadão falecer e está nos serviços consulares encerrados, como é que se pode fazer um assento de óbito? Dá para enviar a documentação de forma digitalizada para o consulado ou só por meio de correio?
Muito obrigada. Nós estamos, de facto, a tentar trabalhar a partir de dados que nos venham digitalizados ou também de correio, mas há documentos que têm que ser os documentos autênticos ou cópias autênticas, como é o caso de uma certidão de óbito. E, portanto, nós, aquilo e consoante as situações que as pessoas nos enviarem, terão de ser enviadas também com o cheque ou uma money order que seja compatível com o montante desse ato consular. Mas nós agora estamos a estudar como é que vamos avisar as pessoas, porque isto terá de ser algo coordenado pela nossa embaixada e com todos os consulados nos Estados Unidos. Claro que sabem que este consulado-geral é especial porque é uma embaixada também. É o nível que tem, como vos disse uma vez, como é São Paulo, como é o Rio de Janeiro, como é Paris ou como é Macau, mas nestas questões de coordenação, de funcionamento, é conveniente que estejamos todos coordenados, mas tendo em atenção que as situações nos estados da nossa jurisdição ou no estado onde se encontra a sede, neste caso Nova Iorque, deste Consulado-Geral, temos de ver como é que as coisas estão, porque podem ser distintas dos outros. E a forma como nós agirmos, os avisos devem ser coordenados e as pessoas devem ter a noção de que há uma preocupação geral em corresponder aos pedidos, mas em respeitar regras e em salvaguardar o bem maior de todos e que não tem preço, que é a saúde.
Muito obrigada, doutora, pela sua presença e pela sua atenção para com a nossa comunidade. Definitivamente já estamos a ultrapassar o tempo, mas gostaria de dar a oportunidade aos nossos convidados especiais que estão aqui presentes também connosco, que é o caso dos nossos deputados parlamentares para as comunidades fora da Europa. Gostaria de dar a palavra ao Dr. José Cesário. Dr. José Cesário, boa tarde, obrigada por estar presente.
Boa tarde, bom dia neste caso para vocês. É um prazer muito grande cumprimentar-vos, cumprimentar todos os participantes neste Town Hall, todos os membros da Nypalc, os representantes das 70 organizações, e felicitar-vos, a si em particular e todos os restantes dirigentes por este tipo de organizações. Significa que mesmo em tempo de confinamento, a Nypalc não para, e isso é fundamental, porque eu estou firmemente convencido que os tempos que aí vêm obrigam a muita partilha, a muita solidariedade. Este aspecto é absolutamente decisivo. Todos nós, portugueses, independentemente de estarmos em Portugal ou fora de Portugal, temos de estar conscientes de que conseguiremos superar mais facilmente as enormes dificuldades com que nos vamos confrontar agora, a partir de agora, se conseguirmos trabalhar essa solidariedade, se conseguirmos atirar para trás das costas aquilo que nos divide e, sobretudo, unirmos-nos em torno daquilo que é essencial, daquilo que é fundamental. As dificuldades vão aumentar, vão ser tremendas, não é? Aquilo que passámos até agora foi uma crise sanitária. Agora virá a grande crise, o impacto económico, tudo aquilo que nós passamos. Vamos ter de superar estas dificuldades, mas, sobretudo, superá-las continuando a atender aos problemas, os riscos que existem para os setores mais débeis da nossa sociedade, os mais idosos, os doentes particularmente, e não esquecendo que, porém, a sociedade não pode parar. Vai ter de ir em frente, vamos ter de trabalhar todos, não podemos ficar eternamente em casa. Mas aí vamos ter efetivamente aqueles que vão ter mais problemas. Nós temos muita gente nas nossas comunidades com sucesso, mas eu não me canso de dizer, temos muita gente com muitas dificuldades. Já tradicionalmente, e agora vamos ter mais, porque em tempos de crise, não tenho dúvidas, os indocumentados vão aumentar, a imigração ilegal vai aumentar, vão aumentar as dificuldades de muitos daqueles que já tinham vidas difíceis. E por isso, repito, vamos ter de estar todos muito unidos, é absolutamente fundamental que consigamos juntos superar estas dificuldades. E eu termino felicitando-vos e apelando a que continuem mesmo ao domingo, continuem efetivamente este tipo de iniciativas e até um dia destes.
Muito obrigada, Soutor. Agradecemos a sua participação e a sua disponibilidade. Temos Carlos, temos o Dr. Paulo Porto? Não. Portanto, também, we also have to be conscious of our Portuguese elected officials here in the state of New York and their participation and their support of Nypalc and of the Portuguese community. I'd like to ask Councilwoman Janice Duarte to say a few words.
Good afternoon or good morning to everyone, and thank you, Isabel and Nypalc for hosting this town hall, and again for all of your efforts in keeping the community connected, reminding us of the amazing people that we have in our community through your Heroes Initiative, but also keeping us connected with our elected officials both here and abroad, and the issues that are most pertinent to our communities. So I thank you, and again, I am available should anyone need any services or have any questions that I may be able to assist with. I know I'm working closely with Liz Ferreira, the president of the Mount Vernon Portuguese American Center or Community, and we are looking at ways, you know, if there are any issues, to reach out both to your community centers, but also your elected officials. So again, thank you, Isabel, Rosa Leal, and Tony Castro, and the whole Nypalc Board of Directors in your efforts in keeping us connected and informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. I would like now to invite Tony Gonçalves. He is the councilman in the town of Lewisboro. Tony.
Hi, Isabel. Thank you very much for inviting me to the town hall. It's a pleasure to participate in these discussions with Nypalc and to listen to all the special guests. There's a lot of good information that is shared here. And I'm really looking forward to when things open up so we can all get together again and enjoy a coffee. And maybe some of you can make the drive up to the town of Lewisboro, and I'll show you around our beautiful town. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Tony. Keep safe. And now I'd like to invite Deputy Mayor Paulo Pereira from the village of Maniola to say a few words.
Muito bom dia a todos, então. Em princípio, queria desejar um feliz Dia das Mães a todas as mães, que hoje é Dia das Mães em Portugal. Acabei há pouco tempo de ligar à minha mãe através de FaceTime, portanto, mesmo como o Sr. Deputado José Cesário estava a mencionar, nestes tempos de confinamento tentamos manter essas ligações. E eu agora a ver o Dr. Cesário pela primeira vez, a última vez que vi o Dr. Cesário foi no aeroporto, e naquele tempo eu fui visitar os meus pais em fevereiro, não tínhamos a mínima ideia que apenas 8 semanas depois estaríamos na situação em que estamos, mas foi um prazer ver o Dr. Cesário. Eu vou mudar para inglês porque eu acho que temos alguns convidados que não entendem português, portanto será melhor eu dar um resumo muito pequeno, muito curto de como as coisas estão aqui a passar em Maniola. So in Maniola, like the rest of the state, in many ways the rest of the country, we continue to deal with this, but I've always been a firm believer that the government closest to the people is the one that is most responsive. So here in Maniola, we have to keep up the basic services that people expect. So picking up garbage and cleaning our parks and maintaining Village Hall and providing permits and other things that are needed. As many of you know, we have one of the largest healthcare systems here within the village of Maniola, NYU Langone Winthrop Hospital. We deal with birth certificates and death certificates, so we have been very busy. We also have a major construction project going on through the MTA and the Long Island Railroad, which is the third track expansion project that it continues to go on. And we also have major construction going on within the village to our water infrastructure and other infrastructure. So, and one of the side benefits of this, I guess, is because many of the shops are closed and people are off the roads, we are actually ahead of schedule in a lot of those things because we don't have to deal with the traffic mitigation that we would have to deal with if it was business as usual. As many of you know, the elections have been postponed, and then they were postponed again. And so school board elections have been moved to June, and school budget, and that will be done by mail, I believe, by absentee ballots. And village elections have been moved back to September, and they are waiting to see if those will be in person or if they too will be by mail. We have the benefit of having Mayor Scott Strauss, who is an expert in the area of security and emergency management, as he is the Senior VP of Security and Emergency Management for the Northwell Health System. So it's a huge help to us here in the village to have someone who is a professional in this area, and he has done a phenomenal job right from the get-go. Essentially, New York was put on pause on March 17th. On March 18th, the village of Mineola issues its own regulations, and essentially we are not only abiding by the rules of New York State and the CDC, but we also have our own in place to protect our residents as well as to protect our employees. So we are on a 50% staffing model where 50% of our workers come in one day and the other 50% come in the next day. And all transactions with the village are done either through mail, email, or over the phone. Village Hall is closed to the public. Our emergency services, fire department, etc., EMS still obviously is functioning. And one last thing that I'd like to mention is, we're talking about earlier about organizations like our centers, and I want to publicly thank Fernando Frade and the Manila Portuguese Center, who this week will be providing lunch to all of the employees of the village of Mineola, both the Department of Public Works, Department of Water, Village Hall. And so on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, the Manila Portuguese Center is providing lunch free of charge to our workers. And thank you to President Frade and to the entire Manila Portuguese Center board for doing that. We really appreciate it. So on my end, that's it. We have in the village of Mineola about 300 confirmed cases of COVID-19. We do have several deaths to report, including a few within our Portuguese American community, which of course is not a surprise since we are about 15% of the 20,000 residents of Mineola. And so we've been affected just like everybody else. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Be well, be safe, and thank you for the opportunity, Isabel and company.
We are over time, but this was certainly a very exciting conversation where we received much important feedback to many of our questions. We thank all of our invited speakers and all those who participated. I would like to now introduce you to all the Nypalc team, a team that consists of a group of individuals representing all the Portuguese strongholds in New York State, from Monroe County to Suffolk, from Rockland to Westchester, from Nassau to Queens and Kings counties. A group of individuals who bring in expertise day in, day out to guarantee the promotion and advocacy in favor of the New York Portuguese American community. These are the faces of Nypalc. We will now adjourn our town hall. It's been a pleasure to monitor today's town hall. Have a great day, and please continue to stay safe.